Hello and welcome to today's CPD virtual training event aimed at tutors and assessors of the Essential Digital Skills Qualification. This presentation will provide a guide and reference point as we progress through the content, and you can find this in the handout section of the Go Control panel. We will also be using a Google Jamboard today for group activities in which you can share your ideas. You will also need access to the Differentiation Strategies document, which is also in the handout section, as we will be referring to this a little bit later on. We do encourage questions, so please use the question box to share any you do have. This session is a mixture of providing information, exploring best practice, and sharing ideas. It's therefore vital that everybody participates fully, sharing their ideas in a collaborative way to allow for peer learning to take place. So if you haven't already done so, please let me know that you can hear me okay by using the question box, which you will find in the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. And I can see people saying that they can hear, so that is brilliant. So we'll move on. So I'm Rachel Webster, part of the provider development team. A little bit about my background. I have teaching and assessment experience from a range of settings, including schools, colleges and private training organisations, teaching mainly IT qualifications and apprenticeship standards from pre-entry level to level 4. And you can see the objectives for today's session on the screen now. The session will last approximately 1 hour, and the session is being recorded to allow all relevant colleagues to access it in their free time. Okay, then we're going to start off with a couple of polls. The answers provided will help us to adapt our input accordingly. And the first question is, which aspect of the Essential Digital Skills Qualification is the most challenging to differentiate effectively? And if you get to start delivery, please predict what you think it might be. So I'm going to launch the first poll. And you should see that on your screen now. So I'll give everybody a few moments there just to input onto the poll. And also, if your choice is not there, please choose Other and put your answer into the question box and I can share that. Now it looks like we've got all the votes in, and it's pretty clear that we have a sort of split between wider skills and competence and maths development. So I hope today's session and our collaboration together, you will get something out of this. So I'm just going to close the poll. And then the next question, so this relates to exploring the needs of essential digital skills learners. So thinking about them, what is the most relevant need in relation to how you differentiate your learning? So as the previous question, you haven't started teaching the essential digital skills yet. Just try to predict what you think the answer is going to be. So I'm going to launch the second poll. And you will probably notice that learner's ability is not there as an option. This is because it's normally the first answer we receive when we ask about the factors related to differentiation. and we'd just like you to think a little bit differently about the subject today. And again, if your preferred answer isn't there, please choose which you think is the closest and just add any extra comments into the question box. Just waiting for a few more people to vote. I'll give a few more seconds. So the results are shown. 67% the levels of motivation and confidence and engagement, and 33% the areas of strength and weakness and metacognition and awareness. So I'm just going to close that poll. So before we go any further, we're just going to briefly recap what we mean by differentiation. So firstly, it relates to working with groups of learners. Either in small groups, the needs of learners will be very different. So we're going to focus the content of the session on working with cohorts and adapting sessions in relation to individual learner differences. Now, with this in mind, it's therefore about tutors adapting their delivery and support practice in relation to their learners' needs. Having a range of activities, it's always good practice, and links to preferred learning styles, and allowing for the learner to have the time and structure to learn effectively as individuals. So the biggest impact on differentiation is when tutors consider their learners' needs, so which we've already started to think about in direct relation to the essential digital skills. So considering the learner's skills and knowledge and levels of progress and planning to meet their development and needs, it's very important, but so are the ad hoc response activities during a session when formative assessment gives the tutor an idea of how well the learners are progressing. They can adapt the practice in real time and be responsive to this. And how to record all of this. So planning a range of support and extension activities for specific learners is one way to do it. But just as important are informal annotations on lesson plans and schemes of work, and showing how learners being adapted and differentiated in direct relation to the learner's progress and their learning needs. And sometimes tutors sometimes overlook or take for granted are the English and math skills and digital skills needed to complete the activities. Initial and diagnostic assessments don't always guarantee skills and knowledge. And as learners can have areas of strength or gaps in their knowledge or lower levels of confidence in some of these areas, it's worth considering them when planning differentiated activities. Okay then, now we'll focus more closely on the essential digital skills qualification and explore what factors might impact on tutors or assessors' practice. So firstly, the learner's level of motivation and engagement. Talking to different centres and the delivery staff, it seems to be apparent that these do differ. So whilst the majority of learners have extremely high levels, some are also quite low. Both of these will be a challenge, so tutors will need to use a range of strategies to successfully deal with them. And also the individual personal expectations and confidence levels will need to be taken into consideration. Some tutors may also have the added challenge of remote learning or even blended learning where you're doing some remote and some classroom teaching. And that leads us on to the learners' IT skills and access to resources. And this is something I'm going to cover in a little bit more detail a little bit later on. Students' English and math skills and attitudes, so linking back to initial and diagnostic tests or prior attainment, and of course the learners' attitudes towards how important these are going to be for essential digital skills success. And then we've got the individual levels of progress, so thinking about how aware the learners are of their progress, how motivated they are to push themselves in and what their individual hooks are. And in this, I mean the type of approach tutors take to motivate and to encourage them to improve. And then we've got learners' ability to cope and the levels of resilience. Something extremely important to consider, especially after coming out of lockdown and getting back into everyday life. Tutors may need to consider which learners would need further reassurance or support just to keep going. Then we've got the work ethic and work experience, something really important in relation to progression after level 1. Tutors should consider how strong the learner's abilities and competencies are in relation to being work ready, and adapt their input to highlight areas of the content which some learners may need more or less input. We've got the differences and circumstances of learners in the cohort. So, for example, the relationship between the learners in the group and who work best with who. These could change with a mixed age group in a cohort. So be mindful of these when you're when you're sort of doing activities which develop the learner's core working abilities, and managing the relationships may need to be differentiated also. You've got the learner's problem solving skills and abilities, which will also impact on the tutor's planning for differentiation. It might be that the problem solving skills of some learners may need to be developed via a different teaching and learning approach. The learner's awareness of the areas of strength and weakness will impact on your tutor's practice. Think about the learners who need more reflective and would benefit from improving their awareness of the levels of progress and priorities for their development. And the learner's preferred learning styles. And although we know this is an area which is contested, it's something they should be aware of for their own learning and also to apply skills and knowledge to their everyday life. The learner's prior learning experience will have an impact on their ability to engage with the learning experiences we provide for them. They're human, and if they've had negative experience in the past, they'll probably bring them into the learning context. Any learning difficulties and disabilities, any special education need requirements. Although this is for some centres probably easier due to the formal support plans and professional input and guidance, but others, they might find this a struggle. And finances, so there's going to be a range of different backgrounds and personal circumstances, especially if you've got a mixed cohort. This might be extra relevant due to the past lockdowns and the economic pressures, which is bringing the families across the country at the moment. And finally, the time of year, the time of day, how learners manage at different times, and how this could impact on their ability to focus on learning is something tutors could consider when planning for individualised learning. We're now going to look at the Essential Digital Skills qualification and make some suggestions for approaches and activities tutors could consider and use. Please use the question box to share any of your own ideas as I go through this slide. So we've got the content. So the Essential Digital Skills Framework defines the digital skills adults need to safely benefit from, participate in, and contribute to the digital world. The most significant change to the framework is the introduction of specific skills and statements for life and work to show progression. And the content is made up of 5 categories of essential digital skills for life and work. Expectations, as I mentioned on the previous slide, this could be quite a big step for some learners. Tutors need to consider which learners need support to be able to read assessment questions, following task instructions correctly while carrying out the skill, and evidencing it in the correct place. It might also be that there's a need to have a specific teaching and learning activity related to identifying what a scenario is and how to carry out the task required from a scenario and get the learner used to navigating between the different pages and different screens and being confident in file storage. The controlled assessments, so for many learners and tutors, the move to these different forms of online controlled assessments might be something which needs to be factored into differentiated learning activities. So revising, preparing for a controlled assessment and being able to apply the theoretical knowledge they've gained to the multi-choice section of the assessment might need to be considered. And different types of support, guidance and learning activities provided for individuals who've not had experience of answering multi-choice questions. How could learners be paired or grouped to allow for peer learning or support? Tutors could also consider which learners have these skills already and need to have appropriate extension activities planned for them. So the wider skills and competencies. So for English and Maths, we need to consider the skills needed to be successful on the Essential Digital Skills qualification, but also how the learners will be expected to support development of the skills, such as creating a CV, layout when adopting appropriate common conventions for specific purposes and for audiences. And for example, a formal report for managers, an advertisement for consumers, a presentation for colleagues, composing emails, using basic calculations to calculate their weekly or monthly spending, comparing best practice when searching for products online, using software to carry out simple calculations. As these skills are vital to the success of every learner in life and work, the promotion and development of them is deemed best practice, and some learners will need more support than others. Having starter or re-energising activities planned in for all learners is good practice, but I would also suggest getting support from any subject specialist colleagues, what you might have in your centres, to get the most effective support for that learner. And then for digital skills, you may need to consider the differences in the learner's skills and knowledge. So some learners will be more confident and knowledgeable than others due to personal experiences. Some learners may have digital technologies in the home. A lot of people now do have mobile phones and use them daily. So for example, they might use social media, but they might have very little experience of word processing or spreadsheets, or using applications to even bank or shop and look after their health, etc. And other learners may have access to very or little or no technology at all. So communication, learners should be able to communicate formally and informally, depending on who their intended audience is, and should be encouraged to use active listening skills, to speak and to communicate effectively in all the activities and experiences in class. And progression and employability, it might be useful for learners to be supported to reflect on the skills and explore the softer skills and competencies they need to develop or improve. The awareness of the type of employability skills needed in work or skills needed in everyday life might not be highly developed. And also some learners may require more input and guidance than others in relation to the most appropriate progression route. Tutors may need to adapt their input and approach to support the development of learners' awareness and their progression options. Which leads us on to reflection and awareness of the developmental needs. And although reflective practice is at the core of work and something we're already talked about, it's probably going to be an important factor to consider when planning differentiated activities. So consider learners' experience or lack of experience in some cases. So activities and experiences when preparing for work and life can be supported through practice and simulation in the classroom. And I'm just going to check to see if any other comments have come into the question box as I've gone through that, and it doesn't appear to be so. So we're going to move on. And I think it's enough of me talking for the minute. I would like to get your ideas and thoughts by completing the first Jamboard activity. I'm going to now pop a link into the chat box for you to click and follow. And I will share my screen so you can see what it looks like. And I would just like you to think how you could differentiate teaching and learning activities related firstly to the learner's level of motivation and confidence and even engagement, and then secondly, the learner's English and math skills. So I'm just going to pop the link into the chat. You should see that in the chat box now. And if you can just click and follow the link, it should take you to our Jamboard for today. Now, if you're new to Jamboards, I'm just quickly, if you can just look at my screen, you can see little navigation buttons along the top which take you to the next frame or the next slide. So we're on slide 1. And what I would like you to do is to create a little sticky note by going down to the menu on the left-hand side. You'll see a little sticky note box. You can select a colour if you wanted to change the colour. And if you can just pop your name in, and then your idea, click save, and then it'll come onto the board, and then you can just drag and drop to the right column. So if we can just have some thoughts and ideas on the learner's levels of motivation, confidence and engagement. Absolutely. Pairing learners up with different levels. And it's going to be really important gathering this information about your learners. So getting involved in the initial assessment process, start creating a class profile and updating it every session. Once you get to know your learners, it becomes a little bit easier. And Andrew's put, find out what the learner's interests are using relevant context to engage them. Absolutely. So we've got that here. Having a buddy in class, learners who perhaps have more experience than others. Perfect way. Yes, it goes back to what Helen said. So pairing your classes up and your learners up. Group activities. Yeah. Peer support. Perfect. So it's not just the tutor, so telling them that and reflect and learn from each other all the time. Now, what about the learner's English and math skills? A lot of these would work the same. Is that what are the sort of shared ideas? If you can sort of move them or add another one, quizzes that are interactive, perfect. anything else for English and maths? Adapting the resources and handouts to support and extend learning. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger so I can see. Link to the English math skills, yeah. So where do you find that your English and math skills come in when you're actually delivering your course? Yeah, it's so important, like working and getting support from colleagues who are specialists in English and maths is going to really help you. Yep, having learners create their own glossary of terms. That's brilliant. We do have a glossary of terms on QualHub for the essential digital skills, and it's always a good sort of reference point for learners to use, and they can also add their own onto that as well, and it just builds up that vocabulary. Yeah, being aware of language barriers. Yeah, I've spoke to a few centres who have been delivering it to purely classes where English is not their first language, and being aware of the barriers what that can cause in the classroom is huge. That's some brilliant ideas there. I'm just going to go back to our PowerPoint. And we're going to just do a quick little recap. So when considering your differentiation strategies, remember to include all aspects of the essential digital skills qualification. And don't assume anything. Think about all the skills, knowledge, and competencies your learners need to complete tasks, and adapt levels of support and stretch accordingly. And don't forget to record everything. Even if it's a scribbled note on your scheme of work, it shows that you're individualising the learning in response to your learners' needs. Promote learner reflection and ownership of the strengths and areas of support and development, and they'll input into the learning better this way. And finally, remember to include your learners in the whole process. Now, I'm just going to go back to our Jamboard. And this time, if we could go to slide 2, and it's the differentiation strategies slide. Now, I've just started us off. You will need to go to the handout section and open up the Word document we've got there, which is the differentiation strategies. And then I would just like you to pick at least 2 from the table you see there in any order. So pick 2 what maybe might be of interest to yourself and mix them up a bit. And then create a sticky note stating the strategy, the activity you have selected, with an explanation of when or where they might be useful to use in your delivery of the essential digital skills qualification. So I've just started us off with one. So I've just started off with a learner watching a video for a purpose and when explaining digital threats, for example. I'm just going to move this one down. So we've got card sorting activities can be used for individual pairs or groups and easily differentiated both in levels of support and levels of stretch and challenge. Perfect. Crossword puzzles, brilliant. Also a good way of getting them used to the different terminology they'll be coming used to if they're not used to digital terminology. Perfect. Let's have a look at this one. So assigning open-ended projects suitable for higher level learners. Yep. Always making sure that you've got extension tasks there available for learners who have completed them activities. And also tasks what they could take away and even develop further at home. Yep, learners watching a video for a purpose useful to support reflection. Learners can review somebody's work on a video in a safe setting, allowing them to analyse good, bad practice, correct, incorrect answers. Absolutely. And another way you could still sort of do that sort of peer support is when they've created, say, a Word document or a poster, have peer review going on so they can go around the classroom so they can pick up and they can learn from others and then go back and maybe do some adaptation to their own. Peer support so parents stronger and we get learners together, but also stretch and high and level learners when you put them together. Yeah. It's always important just to have that sort of variety of different tasks at hand. So extension activities during the session. It could even just be a bank of scenarios related to them session outcomes, and you can stretch and you can push and you can challenge your your learners that way. What about having a goal setting exercise? When would you see that working in your delivery? That's a good one. So open access to a variety of tasks useful for developing the metacognition, to getting the students to review what level of task they should attempt. Perfect, brilliant. When would you use goal setting exercise? Allowing time for reflection related to a task, a skill, progress review, useful if structured to support the specific levels. Absolutely. Now, on your differentiation strategies document, you can fill in more. You still have access to this Jamboard after today's session, but also at the end of the session to discuss different techniques what other colleagues are using who's also delivering this, and then you can add some more ideas to this. And as you go through and progress with your cohorts, you're just going to build up and have more examples and more strategies at hand to use. Okay, so this takes us now back to our final pause. So after attending the session today, how has your understanding or confidence level of differentiation changed? So I'm going to launch the final poll. I'll just give a few more minutes just for a few more votes to come through. So the results coming through are saying 25% slightly improved, which is really good. 50% moderately improved. And we have 25% has consolidated what you already know, which is brilliant. So on the Jamboard, on the very final slide, we have our key takeaways from today's session. And if we just go to the final Jamboard, and if we could just post some key takeaways, things that you might want to try out, things that you're going to take away and put into practice. Anna, I know your organisation had blocked your Jamboard link. If you would like to post some ideas into the question box, I'll update the Jamboard with any ideas you do have, so you can access it. And I will send you a link in an email at the end of today's session, so you could maybe access it on a different device. Perfect. Absolutely. We tend to take a lot of things for granted, don't we? In a class, you expect learners, even simple things like composing, say, an email or even a social media post. You can see some posts what people have posted, and they've got wrong grammar. They've got like little capital I's, even full stops after a capital letter as well. We take a lot of things for granted, but some learners need to be taught how to do it correctly. Absolutely involve any specialist what you've got around in your centres, any English or math specialist. They might have banks or pools of resources you could pull out to help your learners. Yes, exploring how to differentiate questioning effectively. Something to try out if you've got a cohort of learners already on your course. And having a, a sort of a profile of your learners so you can keep it updated and at hand so you can refer to it all the time in the classroom is a massive help. Seeing who learners work best with, making notes of that and changing your activities for the next day. And this will change all the time because every cohort's going to be different. Yeah. And talking and sharing what works with other people who are delivering the same qualification as yourself is beneficial. And remembering what might work for them in that particular group mightn't work for you in your particular group, but it's always best to share practice and to try new things. And then just a reminder that the differentiation strategies document is in the handout section for you to download before we close the webinar today. And then you can complete this in your spare time and then share your ideas with colleagues. And as just put in the question box, I would take away a more integrated approach for maths, working with our maths tutor to incorporate their curriculum. Absolutely. So integrating it into digital skills, especially when they're coming to do spreadsheets, when they're searching the internet for products as well, working out what's the best deal, taking into consideration delivery costs, the product cost, the time it's going to take to get delivered. When you're looking at different file sizes, just embedding maths and even just using questioning techniques. There didn't seem to be any more questions coming into the question box. And all what's left to say is a huge thank you for all your attendance and all your input today. It's been great. And please do complete our session evaluation form as you log out, and remember to let us know your ideas and any suggestions for future CPD sessions in content. And all I'd like to say now is goodbye and stay safe from everybody at NCFE. Yes, Latia's just asked, can I have copies of the Jamboards for reference? Yes, I'll download them as a PDF and I will email everybody a copy after today's call. And we've got another question coming in. Would it be practical or recommended to teach different levels in the same class? Now, delivering like your essential digital skills, you're always going to find, even people who are coming out in their diagnostics at a level 1, you're always going to have a big gap in their differentiated needs within that level. It would be challenging. It would be really challenging to deliver, I would say, a mixed levels at the same time because of the level of the program and the amount of support some learners, especially entry level 3, may require. But it would certainly test you. My personal experience, I've delivered level 1 and I have mixed it with level 2 before. That was quite challenging, but I definitely wouldn't like to mix entry level 3 with level 1s, unless it was the odd learner who you might want to progress. So there's no more questions coming through. I'll make sure that everyone gets a copy of the Jamboard in an email, and also the Jamboard link if you would like to refer back to it at any time. Thank you. Goodbye.